Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If the gentlemen are out there, I know there's a few that watch the show. This is Yvonne DeVita in sunny Binghamton, New York. And you know that's just a joke there, right? Because it's not sunny in Binghamton, New York. It used to be sunny in Colorado, and you're getting tired of hearing me say that, but I can't get over it. I've been here 2 years, back 2 years to my home state, and I just don't remember it being this dreary. But it is what it is. You know what? I'm going to bring a little sunshine into your life today because we're going to talk about some shameless self-promotion. That's kind of hard to get out, Lonnee Rey. This is Lonnee Rey. Say hi.
Hey, guys, gals, everybody.
Yeah. And so you're listening to Smart Women Conversations with Yvonne DeVita. And let me tell you about the very special guest I have today. And you can look at her beautiful smiling face. She's a facilitator of great people, products, and services. You know, Lonnee, I think like everybody's great in some way, shape, or form, and I know you do too. And so when you say that, it's about letting women and men know that you're going to bring the great out in them.
Yes.
I know you will. She brings a diverse range of resources and options. She saves clients time, money, and frustration. So she's currently known as one of the few podcast guest trainers in the world. She trains Nervous Nellies how to confidently use the global microphone to speak their truth in no uncertain terms on podcasts, in person, and on video. And clients experience a renewal of confidence, which parlays into every aspect of life. So, Lonnee, I love this quote that you have on your site. I love working with those who have felt like the underdog or the lone wolf. There is nothing better than seeing someone realize their talent, gifts, and value than facilitating their authentic self-expression with the world. Wonderful. I just love that. So, she's combining over 20 years as a spokesmodel for multinational brands with experience working in TV, film, and radio broadcasting. She did marketing, copywriting, public speaking, and she elevates her clients to a level of preparedness few others can't offer. So then we're going to talk, ladies and gentlemen, about the t-shirt that you see this woman wearing. It says, midlife on my ass, I'm just getting started. Now, isn't that what I tell you? Well, I don't say it quite as shamelessly self-promotionally as that, but I love it, don't you? It's her, this is her 7th show. Excuse me a minute. Woohoo! Getting too excited. It's a short form podcast. And I don't want to forget to mention how, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, the short form podcast is really getting to be popular, and you know why, because it is a short form. It really delivers. She delivers because hers is filled with lighthearted philosophy, mindset resets, and inspiration you can use to make the rest of your life the best of your life. And so before we bring her on again, and before we start talking about this brand mother self-marketing, I want to tell you that she openly admits to a passion for prose, watching repeats of Frasier, and drinking milk from the carton. Lonnee, welcome to the show. I didn't bring any milk, but if I did, I'd let you drink it from the carton.
Thank you. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, Yvonne. I'm so excited about this. Thank you for having me.
You know, I really want to start with your background, because I tell everyone that there's a journey we all go through, that we aren't born and we don't become whatever it is. We have a journey along the way. Sometimes we pivot from one place to another. And I know you've had an interesting journey, so tell us.
Yeah, I have. You know what's interesting is back when I was a child, I had a favorite beach towel, Yvonne, and you'll appreciate this. It was a spelling test, really. I didn't realize it, but it was a mama kitty. and a bunch of colorful little baby kitties all around her. And I was just learning how to read and I couldn't figure it out. My mom said, sound it out, sound it out. And I said, variety is the spice of life. And I said, what's variety? And she said, someday you'll figure it out. Well, you know what? Variety is the spice of life. And it has become the absolute backbone reason I've done what I've done. Pippi Longstocking, came to life in my life. Full of adventures. What's over there? I just had to check it out. But along the way was also getting rid of the rocks in my socks and the boulders on my shoulders. I was deeply burdened, deeply troubled. I really was for about 40 years. And it took a long time to shake that proverbial monkey off my back. Thanks, Pippi Longstocking. I still had the adventures I wanted to have. And in looking at all of the different things, it's so funny. Bewitched captured my attention. I wanted to figure out how to twitch my nose and do magic. But so you do well at that. So it became a metaphysical pursuits and spiritual pursuits in that regard. And then Darren Stevens, he was doing advertising, and I'm the geek who will still watch commercials because I'm fascinated, right? You too. Fascinated with commercials. If you've ever tried to shoot a 30-second commercial, guys, it is hard. And I'm so impressed with the way that they could parlay what they came to say, get that message out. So yeah, it has been a journey, absolutely, of undoing everything that had been dumped on me, and then creating. I believe that we get to create who we are, as opposed to discovering. Discovery implies to me that something's hidden somewhere, and we just have to look hard enough to find it. And I absolutely believe we can create, because we can rewrite the next chapter.
Yes, yes. So I love the word magic. You put the word magic in there.
Yes.
And magic is something that helps us create things. It helps us become who it is, whatever the life the universe has offered us. Okay, so now you're up here, you're on your 7th show. So before we get into the 7th show, what were the first 6 shows?
Oh my God, I've had so much fun. So the first one was Living Dreams, and it was a TV show. It was my first foray into television, so it was cable access, and I got to interview people that were living their dreams, because I had so many people say to me, the world's your oyster, all the options are available, and then they would walk away, and I'm like, hang on, how do you decide?
Yeah.
How do you make a decision, please? Somebody help me out here. And it was funny because in doing those interviews, and I interviewed a lot of successful types, CEOs, I said, how the heck did you figure out? How do you decide? And in so many ways, it was not cool to say intuition back then. It wasn't cool to say anything spiritual. And so they would say, well, when you get that hunch, and if you ignore it, you regret it. I said, yeah, I kind of know what you mean. They said, well, I live by hunches. I'm like, wait, hang on. You run this multi-million-dollar manufacturing plant based on hunches, not spreadsheets and pie charts? No, it's actually a feeling thing. And so listening to all these different people describe how they made a decision to what to do with their life and what they do now in that life, I summed it up as what I call the big yes. And it can defy logic. It can look crazy to other people, but it's your story, your plan, your soul came for a certain agenda, and that's your big yes. And so that was my next show. It was called The Big Yes. And I interviewed people that were living their big yes. And that was motivational speakers. I call them the usual suspects, like Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Mark Victor Hanson. Yeah, all of them.
How did you get them to say, yes, I'll come on your show?
It was easier than I ever imagined. And this is pre-internet. And here's the funny thing is I didn't expect to have a radio show, Yvonne. It was not in my head. And all of a sudden this little voice is saying, get a radio show. And I started asking everybody, who do you know in radio? Who do you know? I was asking the postman, the ice cream man. It didn't matter. I was like, who do you know in radio? Turned out to be my dear friend actually had a connection to a radio station. And so I had my very first show. Wasn't ready at all for my first guest. It turned out to be my absolute hero at the time, who was John Bradshaw. And he is the pioneer of the inner child work. And I had just watched his PBS series, and it broke me down and built me back up. And I was just, like, oh my God, John Bradshaw's on the phone, and I wasn't ready. I didn't know who my guest was going to be. The producer set it up. And that never, ever happened again. Believe me, it never happened again.
Oh, yeah.
Preparation is key. I sure learned that. Yeah. Other shows that I've had. So the Big Yes was really fun. And it's also a mission that I encourage people to live by, their Big Yes. And then let's see, which one did I do? Oh, it could have been Cougar Talk Radio. Um, So Cougar Talk Radio was not older women getting younger guys, but it did stem out of a cocktail party with a bunch of women complaining. They were bitter divorcees complaining about men, and I'm thinking there's a show in here somewhere, and it and it turned out to be a comedy show for anyone who's ever been single. And I was just running the microphone and bringing guests in that were out there doing crazy things out in the Charleston, South Carolina area. That is actually how I ended up on Steve Harvey, because of that show. It's funny where podcasts can take you. I was also on the world's first uncensored adult talk radio station on the web, ksexradio.com.
Wow.
It was it was me and my co-host, Big Dick, and he genuinely was. He was he was terrible. The sense of humor of a 9-year-old. And so I learned the value of having a good co-host, or not at all. Yeah, most definitely not at all in that case. Let's see, what other shows have I done? I've done Poke the Podcasters, which is it's a show where I bring podcasters out into the video arena so that their fans can see who they are.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's super fun. I've also done Bold Movers and Shakers, where I wanted to interview people that were doing bold things in life. The interesting thing about this, and I think it's really significant to remember this. A lot of people they don't want to own their best qualities. I'm struggling with words. I started a group for the Bold Movers and Shakers podcast, and I invited people to share their bold move in life, so that others can learn and be inspired, right? Nobody would do it. Nobody. And I don't understand the reticence. That is false humility. I've been talking with a friend about that, and he said that's not humility as it was intended to be. That is hiding the gifts that you came to share, and that's not humility. That's an error. So I learned from Bold Movers and Shakers that nobody's sitting at home going, I need to be more bold in life. Not one person is thinking that, and yet that's exactly what it is. So in messaging, I've had to learn how to switch to tell people what they want versus what they need, like to not minister to what they actually, I'm not a minister, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
It actually is a step off the curb, and that may seem bold to you, but that's not the part we're going to talk about. What we're going to talk about is getting you out there so that you can actually get across the street, and those baby steps equal bold moves.
And this is so important, because women especially tend to downplay everything that's wonderful about them. And you have this amazing energy and this amazing desire to find out, like the commercial wise, there's a commercial where there's, I think it's for Apple phones. Now, see, that's a sad thing. I don't know what it's for, but I know there's several versions of it where a little girl is saying, how did you find out where to get that? How did you find out where to get that? How did you find out where to buy our house? Well, and that's you. It's like, I need to know all these things. But the rest of us are not. I'm that way a little bit, maybe not quite as much, but we want people to bring back that curiosity and not to be afraid then to pursue it. So people like to say, curiosity killed the cat. And I say to them, but the second half of that is satisfaction brought him back. So you got to do it.
I love that.
So you're talking about Big Dick, and I have to tell you, I don't remember if in our talks before the show, I told you about my book. I think I did. My book that got me started, Dickless Marketing, it was marketing for 2 women on the internet, ended up turning into marketing for women. But I did it because it was about Dick and Jane. Well, everybody thought it was something else, and that's okay. That's what I did it for.
I love that.
And you have to do it, and you have to own it. And I was great with it, but all these interviewers were like, well, tell us the name of your book, because they wouldn't say it out loud. Now, this was 2005. Bonnie, Dickless Marketing, say it out loud. It's not a big deal.
Oh, that's funny. What a bunch of babies.
They were. I think they would say it today, but I don't know. You know, I did. And the interesting thing is there were a lot of men that interviewed me on podcasts and other shows. They had no problem. They thought it was the greatest thing going. This woman who wrote this book called Dickless Marketing. This is awesome. And I'm like, see, that's what I mean. But now let's fast forward to midlife my ass. I'm just getting started, because this is the key to us meeting and talking. And this is a focus that I have also. I mean, what the hell is midlife? Stop telling me that I got to stop, because I'm not gonna.
Exactly. And back in the day, midlife didn't mean anything different than being stopped mid-sentence. You don't know what's next, but you've had a sentence interruptus and okay, so it's a midlife interruption. And that's genuinely what midlife used to mean. The whole associating crisis with it. I like to say I take the crisis out of midlife crisis, because it doesn't have to be that level of, it can get there, because we can be very reluctant to make changes. But ultimately, it's a stage. It's not an age. And it happens many times in life where we're like, oh my God, I'm reassessing. Birthdays make us do that every year. Like, oh, where am I? Am I reassessing? And what do I want to be next? What's next for me can be like completely scrapped from what you thought it was. And that can feel like a crisis. That, because especially if we have our identity wrapped around our job or our families, right?
Yep.
And then those change. Kids go to college, jobs in, we retire, but we don't expire. So, there's got to be a way to figure out what's next for you in this moment in which you're letting down, maybe setting down the equivalent of a vase, which is your identity, and reaching for an urn. But there's a moment when your hands are empty, and that can be scary to people. And I've walked through that a lot. So I love to help them get through those midlife moments.
Well, my husband in Old Dog Learning, he likes to say that we need to start recognizing when we retire, whether we retire at 55 or 65 or whatever, we still have 20, 30, maybe 40 years ahead of us. And we are not retiring so we can, sit in the rocking chair and tell stories about how we walked uphill both ways to school to our grandchildren. Although I do that. I absolutely do. But to your point, and to his point, there's a lot of time left. What are you going to do with it? How do you not only fill that time with something fulfilling, but maintain your health? Because we have those opportunities now. We have those options and ability to maintain our health and be something else. Not something else, but something maybe that we wanted to be when we never were. Do you find that?
I do. And actually what I've found is that our health in all ways, whether it's mental, spiritual, physical, or whatever, declines as almost proportionately to the level that we've buried what we've come to do. And so we actually get energized by giving away the very things that we've come to own. It's so ironic, isn't it? Genuine fulfillment comes from that. So the energy that we get from finding that thing or creating that thing is that we can do next. That is energizing. It's vitality in a bottle. I mean, it's just how to get up and get going, because it's what drives you to really give and participate in the world. If you stop, you drop, there's that expression. So it's important to find something that motivates you. And it almost always has to do with helping other people get somewhere a little quicker, a little faster, a little easier. Or maybe it's not even problem solving, but up leveling where people are currently at.
Yeah, it's also, I have to give credit to the people and the women who are helping us look our best and feel our best along the way. So one of the shows I did recently was a woman who does something called the food codes, where you can determine what foods are best for you as an individual, not having a diet the way other people think of diet, but understanding that maybe you shouldn't eat zucchini. Maybe you and zucchini aren't getting along. So she has this focus, and she's helping people recognize that when you're healthy, you can do all this magic that you're talking about.
Yes. Yes. You can't really do it without it.
Absolutely. So midlife my ass. I mean, you are the queen of, I mean, here we are, the brand mother. Wonderful. Love that. Where do you come up with these really great, pithy things? They just
Well,
pop out of your mouth. I hear them all the time. You are so creative.
thank you. Thank you. It's kind of a wish that got fulfilled back in the day when I was so Mark Victor Hanson from Chicken Soup for the Soul was on my show. He was a call-in. Thank God I had a good co-host who was funny, because I was the heavy. I was like, I want answers. I want them now. But when I finally got to meet Mark in person, it was an instant friendship. And what I kept watching him from stage, because I've had speaker training, publishing, all this other stuff. And he would roll out with these things, and we would all just be sort of like deer in the headlights. I thought, how do you do that? Well, the way that that's happened for me is because this long journey, this literal trek through the jungle, I've found some shortcuts. These pithy one-liners are not just a one-liner that makes you giggle. They're actual truths that can circumvent, shortcut, and avoid potholes that can take years of tears, and you can avoid that. So it was my way of like, acceptance is the key to peace, or delete the need to understand. Some and some of them need a little explaining, but ultimately they really just, they zing right into you, and you're like, oh yeah, that just like registered, and then off you go. You don't have to read a bunch about it,
Yeah, so tell us about the short version. I mean, we're looking at short podcasting shows.
Yes.
Where you're really, how do you take 7 minutes and actually make a show out of it?
Yeah, that was oh, and by the way, just to trail on to the brand mother of self-marketing, that was a title that Mark gave me.
Oh,
Yeah, he made that up. And I was absolutely like, what? Okay.
all
And it
right.
was from a
Yeah,
postcard.
I'll take it. Right.
I didn't mean to. I was just
Well,
literally like making hot pink postcards, and
it's better than for years I was known as, oh, there's that dickless marketing lady. Okay.
right. Right.
But
Yeah. So the postcards were hot pink. They stood out in the postal bags when he and Jack would come back from being on the road. And not everybody was a fan of Chicken Soup for the Soul at the time. In fact, they got a lot of hate mail. And he said, yes, they did. And they never knew. He said, we never knew what we were going to open up and read. But he said, I knew that hot pink, that was you. And I was going to go looking through all these bags to find what you sent.
Oh, man.
So that inadvertently became how I got that name,
Yeah.
the brand mother of self-marketing.
So tell us about 7 minutes.
Sure, absolutely. That takes some planning. Sometimes I have to re-record a show, but mostly what I have found after doing multiple shows with long, extensive interviews is that I want to give people that point and off you go. Here you go. And so it takes some planning around the actual context. Sometimes I ramble. What I have found is that having a 7 to at max 11 minute show is enough. It's enough information. It's challenging to do an interview in that amount of time.
Yeah.
And I tried, chopping shows up with people, doing one show or 3.
Yep.
It's a little trickier that way. I think we kind of lose the flow. But I didn't realize I had so much to say on my own because I've always interviewed other people. So this was an awakening of my own, really, that I could, throw it out there in 7 minutes. So it comes out with a main topic, and then maybe a story, and then hopefully a giggle somewhere in there, because my goal is to free your soul and make you light, bubbly, and go on your way. See you later.
Well, I can tell you that I've listened to several podcasts from other people who kind of it's their show, so they're talking, and they're okay, they're good. I mean, depending on what the show is about and what the purpose is, they generally do talk for 20 to 30 minutes, and it's hard to keep listening to just one person pontificate on a subject for 20 to 30 minutes. So I agree with you, but you have these really short, pithy shows, and your videos. I mean, you're also doing video. So you're a great face for video.
Thank you.
But you have a great setting behind you. I'm still playing around with what goes behind me. That's why I try to show off some of my books about women. But
thank you.
in the end, there is, I'm glad you said earlier, it takes preparation, because people sadly, they tend to think, wow, that must be easy. I'm going to do that too. Okay, right. I'll tell you, when we, myself, my husband, my daughter, and another blogger ran Blog Pause, which was an online pet blogging influencer community. And we put on a national conference every year, and we had 400 to 500 bloggers and brands, and they all brought pets because it was pet friendly. And after a couple of years, I would overhear people saying, I wish they would do this. I wish, maybe we should start our own. And I'd be like, you go for it, honey. You just go for it. Because it takes work.
Yes.
It's not easy. 7 minutes is hard.
It is. It is.
But
it's
the preparation that goes into it beyond just what you're going to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I've created the podcast guest game.
Oh.
And you see that there's 3 hats behind me.
I do, and I love them.
Those are my genuine hats, my adventure hats. And I fill them with an envelope. Each one has an envelope of questions. And so I let the person pick an envelope, pick a hat.
Awesome.
And then we go through actual questions that have been asked, particularly of me, so that I'm not picking on anybody out there in the world. I don't ever mean to do that. It's using them as an example for, are you genuinely ready to come out and impact the listeners?
So impact the listeners. And this is the thing where people, again, it looks so easy. You make it look easy. So people think I make it look easy. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of these videos, and then before they go up on my blog. But relevant to all of that, it wasn't even for you an overnight. We talked about your journey. It wasn't like you decided I'm going to be the spokesmodel and you went into a car dealership and said, I'll be your spokesmodel. And they said, great, here, let us write you a check.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us
about,
the preparation that went to Lonnee becoming all of these different things. You've done brand model, and copywriting and TV stuff. And in the end, you have that kind of performance energy that we see. But sometimes people can learn that. My daughter teaches people how to do TED Talks. You can learn how to do this. And tell us a little bit about how you brought this electrifying personality that you have to all of these different things that you've done. And it wasn't an overnight. You didn't just get up and say, I'm going to go do that. And you did it.
Not at all. Actually, Yvonne, I was that gal. We've all had that friend who has gutter level self-esteem.
See?
Who and that was me. I was the one most likely to suck the air out of the room and the life out of friendships.
Mm-hmm.
I was very dark. I was very depressed. And it wasn't like medicine could fix it. So I'd been under analysis a few times. Apparently we get to tell ourselves the story of our lives while we're here, right? We get to make this shit up.
Yeah.
So I do. And what I know, and so I tell myself this story that, my soul came to unearth and reinvent itself. And for whatever reason, the players that have been in my life, I'm grateful for them. I've let them go. And it's been, I've got wings ever since, but it wasn't quick. It was a lot of processing, and it was realizing that I had value. So, but I didn't know I did. And so I was that gal that you would pay a compliment to. I would decline it and pray that you would say it again, because I was desperate to be attractive, to be liked. Am I okay? Because I had the absolute opposite lessons in my home. As I was being brought up as a child, they let me know I was unwanted and I was in the way. And I was a lot, it was so devastating to my spirit. And the pain that I was in for so long was the motivator for me to keep looking. How can I undo everything that's been done to me? How can I undo it? And so I started out with an inventory. I made this up. I literally wrote, I believe, at the top of a piece of paper. And for every single thought I had, I wrote line by line by line by line by line. So I could, because writing makes it real and it gets it out of our head and we can handle it, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we can look at it and go, oh, hang on, this one opposes this one. No wonder I'm having problems here. And
Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
delete the need to understand, because we can get hung up. Why did that happen? Why is he like that? Forget about it. You know, acceptance is the key to peace. Just let that go, delete the need to understand, because our understanding of what happened doesn't necessarily change it, does it?
No.
It can change how we look at it, and our perspective changes our emotions,
Yep.
which changes our beliefs, which changes our outcomes. Or the
Yeah.
beliefs change emotions, one or the other. It's really hard to say. They're pretty intrinsic.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So I like to tell people that their life is either things that happen to you in life are either minor inconveniences or major catastrophes. So here are the major catastrophes, a flood, a fire, an earthquake, a medical emergency. Here are the minor inconveniences, everything else. So stop worrying about all those minor inconveniences and say to yourself, this is a minor inconvenience. I do this to myself all the time, because you get so angry over some small thing that's happening in your day. Your day is going, like yesterday, I had a really challenging day. But really, they were a bunch of minor inconveniences getting in my way. And the truth of it, Lonnee, and you know this, I put half of them there. It's like, it's your fault. Get it out of there. So, right, take charge, get them out of your way.
Absolutely. Ownership. So I have a formula for change.
Yeah,
And it's 3AC. Through awareness, acceptance, and action comes change. And you know what? You can't fix it if you're not aware of it, but you can't change it if you don't own it. So, awareness, and then become accepting. Okay, what is what shows up. What you make of it's up to you. Right? Thank God that's an option. We don't have to drag a ball and chain with us, a 70-pound bag of bricks. We can just drop it on the side of the road at any point.
Yes, and we go back to the whole, you can create this. You every day are creating it. You are creating the life that you want to live. So if it isn't the life, if the life you're living isn't what you want, you got to change it. So exactly what you said. And so many people, though, I say this with tears in my heart, because so many people just accept it.
Yeah.
So many people live these lives of quiet desperation, so they say. And
hope is an acronym for hang on, pain ends. And I really, really love that. And having hardly a shred of hope in my life, I genuinely know what that feels like. So I hope that this is inspiring when I tell you that the last thing that this dark energy vampire person could have wished for happened, and that was that people would someday call me happy-go-lucky. And I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew that I was misery walking on two legs, and I knew I had to change, and that there was no way I was going to have the rest of my life like this, or I was going to kill myself. Like, it was bad. It was really bad.
Well, we find a lot of those dark lives that I meet women who've had these dark experiences. And we take them and turn them and mold them and create something else out of them in different ways. But the women who can learn that change is possible really start to do what you did and seek out the tools. I mean, this is a key part. There are tools, and when I say tools, I mean videos like this, women like us who are willing to say, listen, I've been there, I get it. Here's a thought for you to take. And you don't have to be alone. Life was not meant, as much as I'm an introvert and my kids make fun of me because I live in my room, and it would be like, I'll never forget my daughter, Chloe, and when I lived in this little ranch house in upstate New York, and my son was off to school, and I was there by myself and the dog, and it was like 6 o'clock at night, and she came to visit me with a friend of hers, and she said, And they came back and I was in my room eating my dinner, watching TV. And she says, I told you she'd be in her room. I told you that's where she lives. I don't care. I mean, I go out and meet people, but the reality is it's a people world. Yeah.
I can really relate to the whole staying at home thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not the first person that's going to be accepting a party invitation.
Yeah.
I've usually got my back against the wall, 1 foot out the door.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, podcasting and writing, and being an author, those are great ways for introverts to express themselves.
Yes.
I know what that feels like, to be shy or be afraid that what you're going to say is going to get,
Yep.
pummeled. Or I grew up that way.
Yeah.
It's probably why I'm so about, bringing out people's shine, and I'm like a human polishing cloth, and bringing those qualities to the surface, because I know that they're in there. And if they're not, you can learn how to cultivate them.
Exactly.
There's nothing that can't be learned. Nothing.
Exactly. And it takes some effort. So even when you're at your worst, we have to kind of wind up. We're getting to the end here, but I have a couple stories that I can tell you that probably be too long for the show, but really I lived in that dark world also. And it wasn't until I actually had a child and suddenly there was a reason for my life to go on.
Yeah. So often is the case. We need something outside of ourselves.
Yep.
In fact, to wrap up on that question you asked me, how did I go from Debbie Downer to doing promotional spokesmodel work? Craigslist was the thing to do. And I answered ads for talent agencies that were looking for people to come out and stand at a festival, or, hey, baby, want to drive me with the Buick, And I could do it for somebody else.
Yes.
So often that's the case, isn't it, for all of us, right?
Yep.
I could be a promo hoe on someone else's account all day long into the night. And people were starting to give me feedback like, oh, would you join my company, or would you do this? Because they recognized that ability. As long as I had a product in my hand, or some reason to be there at that party, I could do it. But if it was just about me, forget about it. I wasn't there.
Yeah. So this is what I want people to understand. We all have been there. We might make it look easy now, but even now it isn't easy. So it's not hard in the sense of a chore. It's something we enjoy doing. It's something that we're going to do because I feel, and I know you, Lonnee, absolutely feel, this is a great way to give back. And if it can help someone else, then that's what it's all about.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Lonnee Rey, for being on Smart Women Conversations with me, Yvonne DeVita. And ladies and gentlemen, we will have Lonnee Rey back again. I promise you that.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you for having me.